Ready, Gilbert. We're recording. We're live. Thanks.
Okay. Hello, everyone. We start off our lectures with a vow and the recitation of the four great vows. Remember, we add of self-nature at the end of the vows. So we'll begin, join palms and vow. Recitation of the four great vows. I vow to deliver innumerable sentient beings of self-nature. I vow to cut off endless vexations of self-nature. I vow to master limitless approaches to Dharma of self-nature. I vow to attain supreme Buddhahood of self-nature. Again, welcome to you all. We've been adding self-nature to the four great vows, and that's really turned into a very incredible, let's say, fire under some of you to really begin to probe and understand this. And some of you have gone into some of the sutras that mention this, and I'm very, very happy that that happened, because as you begin to understand the idea of self-nature, it begins to flesh out what your understanding is of the Buddha mind. And I really think some of you are beginning to turn the corner very quickly on this, because of this slight adjustment that's there. And it's kind of a long time in coming for me to add that on there, because that was something that I always kind of irked me a little bit, that was deleted, because it is so much great importance, and it was kind of kind of hate to say it, but kind of dumbed down, so it was more acceptable to the masses, rather than to say self-nature and have people ask questions about what's self-nature. But that's exactly what we want to do. We want to be able to look at that and say, well, what is the self-nature of the mind? It's not self like a self. It is the nature of the mind itself. And it is this turning, as we talked about last week, turning the mind's eye inward, so that we can see just simply mind. And so in the Mighty Network, the Mindwork Forum, it has just been blossoming. I'm very, very happy that there's this exchange that's going on there. And some of you are really making dramatic improvements with this. And I'm very pleased. Others, it's a reconfirmation of what your original understandings was, as you begin to become awakened to the reality of things. And the lecture today is about effort, or virya, but all of this still ties into that. And it's kind of a carryover from last week of turning the mind's eye inward. That turning the mind's eye inward is also Virya. There is an effort there to do it, and it's the right effort, and we'll get into that in a moment. But what I wanted to show is that when we begin to look at things of self-nature, it changes the way that we view the world. We're no longer using it and seeing the world as a world per se, but we understand that the world itself is a dream. And some of you have been presenting to me quotes from different sutras where they talk about this. And today I even mentioned, well, it's there in the Diamond Sutra. What did you miss? And it is that turning the mind's eye inward and looking at it. All of a sudden, wherever you look, self-nature of mind, or Buddha nature, is present everywhere. But before, we glossed over it and thought, oh, well, the Buddha is over here, I'm over here, I'm trying to get to this enlightenment so that I can become a Buddha, or whatever your thinking is, rather than this merging, which is actually not even an merging or an absorption. The absorption is the ceasing of the mind clinging to something that is dual or that is an appearance and taking that appearance that's a projection in mind to be your own body. That's why I've been mentioning to a lot of you when you hear me say Ananda, that's not your mind. What I'm saying is that the way that you're approaching it and trying to get to it and hold this up and go, wow, this diamond is very amazing, rather than let the diamond just simply absorb you and dissipate any sense of self, then it works in this way. When I say any sense of self, I'm referring not to the idea of the perception as much as the idea that there is an individual life and being that craves something, that desires something, or that has aversions. And it is this that we avoid. We call it ego or self, and that's why there's a confusion there when we talk about self nature, because then we say, well, self nature isn't that self too? It's just a higher self. But no, that's what the Shurangama Sutra was pointing out, where uh, Ananda finally was saying to the Buddha, "I get it. This is a higher, perfected self." And that's when the Buddha yelled at him, and he said, "Ananda, that's not your mind." And he was so shocked because he still had this idea that there was this life and being that if you polish it enough, it will turn into the Buddha. This is the long way around until who knows how many lifetimes one gets to the point of just going, I'm tired of this. This is not getting me anywhere. Let me take a look at this from a different viewpoint. Then right view comes in, and then voila, it's cooked. But the thing is that that's a long way around where you take the shortcut and say, just this mind that's listening right now, the consciousness that is tied to that mind is not a self. It is simply enables the mind to contemplate. So this consciousness of the five senses and thought and this idea of putting everything together, um, those are the sixth consciousness, and then there's the activation of everything in the seventh consciousness. When we understand all of those are empty, they're not your mind, then all of that is absorbed into the eighth consciousness or the alaya consciousness, because there was never anything outside of the alaya consciousness in the beginning. It is why we talk about that the magically produced magician produces a tiger, but then in the practice, the tiger devours the magician. This is not something easy to understand, but it's relating to the idea of consuming the illusory consciousness, consuming it, meaning that it's being absorbed by mind. This takes effort. It's not something that we can just go, oh, I see, and then boom. It takes effort to get from what I refer to as the metaphysical, the second level of three levels, the first being Shravaka, a sound hearer that listens to things and they can understand it, and they may be able to say Namo Amitofo or Namo Wanching Pusa or whatever, or try to study something and they feel good about it and it's a good practice. That's a sound hearer. The metaphysical is, oh, everything is empty here, and you understand that, and then you set about coursing through life with that understanding. And where we get to here is the necessity of the right effort to be able to do that. So this effort comes up. First of all, the effort is one that is referred to in Sanskrit as Virya, Virya. And if Santa, you can put that in the notes, that would be helpful. So Virya just means the right, this idea of heroic, or and sometimes is this really applied effort. It has a masculine tenor to it, but I would not say so much that it is masculine as much as what we see it kind of signifying this, changing in Chinese, more of a yang energy versus the in energy, where the yang energy is a positive energy. The in energy is, let's say, negative in a very, very basic way. But this applied effort that's there, so it requires this effort. It cannot simply be passive. If we are just passive, we're just treading water. We're not really working on it, because if we're passive, all we're doing is taking a floating device and floating in the ocean of mind, but we're not going anywhere. We're just simply floating there, but we're not doing it. We need to have a direction. When they talk about gate para samgate bodhisattva, go to the other shore, you cannot simply float over. There has to be a sustained effort to get to the other shore. Now, it doesn't mean that you're in a race. It means that you just keep applying it. There's a song, a very famous song in Spanish, called El Rey, the King, and there's a part where he says that he ran into a mule skinner. So the mule skinners have mules; they move very slowly, and the mule skinner told him, the point is not to arrive first, but the point is to arrive. And this is very important. So we don't have to be in a rush to get across, but we still have to keep applying. So the mule skinner will eventually get there. He won't get there as fast as a horse, but he can carry more of a load with him. And this idea is that we practice in this way. Sometimes I'll tell people that you're getting close to the door of Chan, or you've kind of passed into it, or you stuck your head in, looked around, you get kind of pushed back, but at least you stuck your head in for a while. It doesn't mean that somebody has seen their true nature, but what I'm doing is pointing them that they're going in the right direction, that this is how we do it. The ancients would say, the snow has melted, the pass is open, meaning all the obstructions are falling off, and now you can go in this way. To do that, it is something that we help and encourage people by this, by telling them this way. Or I may say that the path is blocked ahead, where somebody is not applying the things in the right way. So it's not just simply an effort, but it has to be the right effort to do that. It cannot be an effort that's too strenuous or too much goal oriented. You have the goal that you want to realize mind, but it cannot be something that you are practicing, like Shifu used to say, Master Sheng used to say, some of you have one eye on the method and the other eye on enlightenment. How can you get anywhere like this? You have to have both eyes on the method. This again comes to the idea of the right effort. And again, in Sanskrit, it's something very interesting, because in the definitions in Sanskrit, there's not just one definition to something. It always means different things. And I'm using this one here. it's a dictionary. I forgot what the source is of this particular dictionary of Buddhism, and and so it might be Patreon, but in this part about Virya, and it talks about different definitions of it from different studies or religion. So it's kind of interesting. But then it gets to the Mahayana and talking about this, and it references again because this is the early sutras, and this effort is coming up at this point in the sutra very early on in the 8,000 line sutra, and this was the Mahaprajnaparamita. They call it sastra here. We refer to it as the sutra, um, and this was from a second century CE. Let me read a little bit to you about that. It says, Virya, exertion, according to the second century Mahaprajnaparamita Sutra, chapter 26. Accordingly, I have to apologize because the right side margin was cut off, so I have to surmise what it was saying. What are the benefits of Virya is that a bodhisattva will investigate diligently and without slackening. And it says the answer, all virtues and all benefits, beneficial lifetime and future lifetime, come from exertion. Moreover, if a person who wants to save himself already gives evidence, and then it's cut off, so I missed that word. What can be said about a bodhisattva who has taken the vow to save all beings? And then here it also references the Virya as the 5 Dharma practices, Panchanya or Ga, for obtaining the first dhyana, according to the Mahaprajnaparamita Sutra. Accordingly, Virya is the observance of the precepts of Sila in and leaving beside emptiness laziness during the 2 watches of the night, limited food, one-pointedness of mind. And here the idea is this one-pointedness was very important in the practice very early on, because this one-pointedness of the mind began to evolve in the Mahaprajnaparamita from this single pointedness or single-minded purpose to the idea of just simply of mind. And then later on in the Chan period, in the its best period, it was from mind to no mind. But it still carried the same tenor of just mind, this idea of that. But if someone clung to the idea of mind, then you would say no mind, and I still do that. And it's all you're trying to do is just kind of weaken that adhesion that tries to hold the idea that this projection there, that the mind is clinging to that, and it's stuck on that, and so it's stuck in this delusion that this dream is real. But as we begin to say, oh, it's just mind, we pull apart. But then you say everything's just mind, and then you stick again, say no mind, and you can pull it off. And so it's this idea of letting go of all notions, all conceptions, but that requires effort for us to do that, and it requires this sustained effort or this one-pointedness of mind, and everything is in this way. And you will see that in the history of Buddhism, you will see that this comes up even before Mahayana in the the Theravadan practices, and in the Nikayas, we refer to as agamas, there is this idea of in the Jakarta tales, all these different efforts of the Buddha in different lifetimes that he made to practice sincerely. And you see there is a sustained effort and this common ground in this way. And we see that reflected because when we get back to the Mahaprajnaparamita Sutras, then we see that this appears in the six paramitas as the an effort that's required to do things. So we need that effort to be able to constantly apply wisdom, to apply patience, and generosity. All of those require a sustained effort. And remember, it's a sustained effort. You can't be this way on one day. On the next day, you're something else. You have to maintain this continuity, but you don't have to force it or muscle it. It is what Fa Yong said, that the mind cannot be subdued by force. So again, we get to right effort. And so this right effort then from the six paramitas then shows up in the Eightfold Path as also this right effort, this effort that is applying the paramitas in its practice, in its effort. It is not simply applying how would you say it, a resistance to things or repelling of phenomena. It's like somebody who's trying to lose weight and they hold back. No, I'm not going to eat any donuts. I'm not going to eat any donuts. You know, get away from me with the donuts. And then one day they find themselves with a dozen donuts and no one's around. And then they indulge themselves because they weren't really using the right effort. They were repulsing things rather than using this wisdom to see through the objects and see through the cravings that are there. Then this changes things. This is right effort, but it has to be there with everything else. When we have generosity, that we help people, we find the way how to help people in the proper way. It's not just simply you give away all your possessions. You could do that, if there was some reason and you want to leave home or whatever, and that's great. But if you give away all your possessions and you have nothing to pay your mortgage or your rent or whatever, or for food, heaven forbid, your cell phone, then maybe that's not the right type of effort that you need. So this idea of effort is very important because it's there right from the very beginning, from the Mahaprajnaparamita Sutra, right there from the beginning. And what else is there in the beginning in the Mahaprajnaparamita Sutras? What system is there? Anybody have an idea? Just to test to see if you're still paying attention. What else is there? Oh, Letty's here, so I can see. You remember the song El Rey, right? No? Yeah. So anyway, it is the Madhyamaka school, the middle way. And so the middle way is there with Mahaprajnaparamita, this incredible sutra that shortens out to the Heart Sutra and expands out to 100,000 lines. And when we normally refer to it, we're referring to the 8,000 line one. When they talk about the Mahaprajnaparamita Sutra, normally that's a reference to the Asta Shasrika Sutra, which is the Sutra of 8,000 lines. This is the bedstone of Mahayana. It is what's the foundation of it. and that foundation is there. And Nagarjuna comes in with the middle way and picks up on that and just really can can penetrate it so incredibly deep that then he presents the Madhyamaka school because it naturally fits. And through his penetration of the sutra, then he's able to manufacture this school of the Madhyamaka school, the middle way. And this middle way is fits perfectly with the paramitas, the middle way of everything. No, we are generous, but it's the right generosity, the wisdom, the right wisdom, all of these things that we do, the right concentration that's there. So all of this is fitting together, and as you begin to practice this is what I want you to do: is use these paramitas, and which is what Nagarjuna did. Nagarjuna did an incredible treatise on how the six paramitas fit in the Mahayana school with everything. And it's absolutely wonderful because even if you don't have maybe the time or the ability to read it, which I still think you ought to take a chance and do it, you can apply those six paramitas understanding this middle way. So it is this right effort that we use in terms of practicing this right effort. Then the rudder of this right effort, if this is a ship, is wisdom. And it is heading towards compassion. It understands that, and that's why when people are talking about the mind, especially a lot of times in the mind work forum, I say something's missing with what you're saying, because they're saying these things are empty. This is empty here, they're empty here. Something's still missing with what you're saying. And it is this compassion that has to be there. So without the right effort, we cannot steer towards this compassion. It naturally will be demonstrated by this understanding from this wisdom to this generosity. This generosity is this compassion of wanting to share with what we have. And it is, again, the cornerstone of what the Diamond Sutra was all about, saying we help the poor, but that isn't necessarily the right effort. The right effort is in helping the poor by giving them this Dharma food. Doesn't mean that one doesn't give to the poor. I'm not saying that whatsoever. No, if people need help, you help them. To me, in this day and age, what I have to give of me is time. And sometimes it's just that way. Tomorrow I'll put a dialogue in that I had with a student this morning. So before I even got out of bed, I mean, completely out of bed, I was already engaging with a student with a question. Matter of fact, her question woke me up. And then I just swung out of bed, put my feet on the ground, didn't move, and just was responding in a natural way. And in this way, I don't pay particular attention to my own needs or cares in that moment. Is that it was more important for me to engage with this student. And when you see it tomorrow, I hope you will see the wonderful flow of the Dharma in responding to the student. It is just this way. This is generosity. This is the right effort. There was an effort to do that, and it was the right one for that moment, because I'm bringing that student closer and closer and closer to the door. And that student's been there before, and it's just little by little, you keep bringing them and bringing them. And after a while, they become the door. And I was saying that about one of the students. I want to mention him, or else he'll get a big head. But I was saying to him that this student doesn't follow the Tao. He is the Tao. He is the way. And that's the difference. So this effort in this way where one becomes mind, it is this idea of becoming without ever becoming anything, but just simply the realization of how mind works and what this skin bag is worth. This is the important part, is not just simply trying to obtain some realization and voila, you're free from everything. Originally, there was nothing that bound you whatsoever. That was from the very beginning of Chan and Bodhidharma um, and the Hueca and Cezanne, all of them. Who is binding you? Nobody's binding you. So when you see this, you understand there's a liberation there. But this liberation is not complete until we understand that this effort is not an effort of simply becoming the smartest or the scholar, but using this in the right way, the right effort to practice. This is why I emphasize demonstration, because this is the right effort. It isn't that you can go somewhere and win a debate on scholarship with someone, because it won't be that way. That you're only um, engaging in some kind of foolishness to be talking about that. An analogy is debating how many angels can balance on a point of a pin. Um, it isn't in this way. It is in that we demonstrate. This is right effort. We demonstrate patience. This is something that's very important that we demonstrate it. Sometimes people, they get so upset so quickly. They can go from zero to anger in 3 seconds or faster than that. But you demonstrate control. This is the right effort. So we understand this because we're applying wisdom to it, patience, generosity with that. When you're faced with somebody that has a difficult time of understanding what you're talking about or can't get it, you cannot call them stupid or anything, or simply try to win a debate with them. You you bring them to the Dharma by finding the common ground, and and um, and through this compassion, this mindfulness that's there, this loving kindness. And loving kindness is not just simply sitting there petting a kitten. Anybody can pet a kitten and feel good about it. Well, so let's say a puppy, maybe not a kitten, but sorry, Mina, but in any case, it's something that you can do, but it isn't necessarily the right effort. The right effort is caring for all sentient beings in this way. It's not easy for us to do it. In the Jakarta Tales, there's the story of Shakyamuni Buddha, um, who I think it was a rabbit that was being chased by an eagle or a hawk, and the rabbit went and took refuge uh, by the king of the kingdom, and the hawk goes, "Why are you protecting the rabbit? I have young ones I have to feed, and um, you're protecting the rabbit, but then my young ones will starve." And so then the Buddha um, figured out how much the rabbit weighed, and then cut it wasn't the Buddha, it was the emperor, but it was Buddha to be, cut that amount of flesh off of his leg to give to the hawk, so that to try to equalize it. This is not easy, but what it shows is this self-sacrifice, this right effort that is made, that we try to understand this life in this way. It isn't so easy sometimes, but when we see it, and then we understand there's more to it. There's, in my neighborhood, because it's partially rural, and we have canyons, so the coyotes have pretty much finished off all the rabbits in the area, and them and the hawks, and so they come into the neighborhoods and are taking the cats and the little dogs, um, and and the people now are beginning to become more vigilante against the coyotes because they're there, but they're hungry too. By their nature, they're doing that. So they're not bad. They're by their nature and their rebirth. They're born into this world like this, and so we we have to see them in this way. The same thing with we have a lot of rattlesnakes. I haven't seen any this year, thank goodness, but they can be very, very big, and like about this thick, like that. Um, if they if if there's a lot of things that they can eat, of course they if they bite you, you're in big trouble. But there's no reason for you to hate them. We see everything in this way. And so whatever we do, we try to harmonize with things. That this again is the right effort. And I'm kind of deviating from what I was going to talk about in terms of this in different places. But I think that this is important to understand this right effort in a way that everybody can identify with it to some extent and see how they can apply it. When you look at, let's say, the 37 factors um, of enlightenment, or there's many different names for it, auxiliaries to enlightenment, but those all have lists that show the right effort that's there. And any list that's there, whether it's paramitas or factors or different kinds of mindfulness or practices, the idea of the right effort will be there. It is something that is there along with wisdom, in terms of these lists, because it is the demonstration of wisdom. It is that part. We could say the analogy is, let's say, the right effort, and if you have the right effort, you could say Guan Yin. Guan Yin, Bodhisattva, Avalokiteshvara, or another name of Guan Shin Pusa. These are all the same, but the effort that is made by Guan Yin is a perfected effort. It's not a conditional one, but it's spread across all sentient beings, with the understanding that these sentient beings are not someone that can be delivered, but nevertheless, the right effort is made towards alleviating the suffering, even though it's illusory. This is difficult for us to understand until we practice further. And when we understand this effort, then the wisdom will be there, the generosity, the patience, all of those things will be present. Likewise, there is an effort, the right effort of Earth Store Bodhisattva. In Chinese, it's Disan Pusa, and in Sanskrit, it's Kitsa Garbaraja. Probably butchered the name a little bit. But in any case, how do you say it, Santa?
Garba.
I think I said that. But in any case, um, this is the bodhisattva that's um, in hell, trying to help the people uh, in hell, and it's a sustained right effort. Kitsi Garba, okay, Kitsi Garba, and I think I added a Raja in there too. So, in any case, it is a sustained effort, the right understanding. No, that's there because in the Prajnaparamita Sutra, it says that if anyone has the notion that I am delivering sentient beings, then they are not truly a student of mine. And you go, wait a minute, what does that mean? How can you say that? Because our whole idea is that we want to deliver sentient beings. I vow to deliver innumerable sentient beings. I vow to deliver innumerable sentient beings of self nature. So this was the part where the Mahaprajnaparamita Sutra is pointing directly at the non-duality of mind and saying these are simply phantoms, illusions, dreams, that they're not really real. They're like a vapor. Just like if you had a dream last night, then you cannot recall that dream and bring those things in unless you're in some kind of a sci-fi movie. But but if but it is something that we understand that worlds can be created in this way. We don't know here that this is or is not a dream. We think we knock on things and say that this is this way, but have you ever had a dream where you go, oh my gosh, it was so real. I could literally feel, the monster breathing on me or whatever. Maybe we make it something better. Swaying in the breeze in Tahiti, with your pina colada. Okay. But the thing is that you can't touch those things, no matter what it is that you can't they aren't in this way. So this idea of this right effort is there, and then we get to the Pushen Pusa, Samantabhadra. I don't know if there's an English name to Samantabhadra. Anybody know there's an English name? It's kind of interesting. But Pushen Pusa in Chinese sometimes is spelled Puxian. And this bodhisattva represents the right effort, the right activity. So it isn't necessarily one whose domain is on earth or the domain on all good universally worthy. Okay. Thank you, Santa. Okay. So all good universally worthy. And see, and that's good because when you say that, it makes sense because it's universal. And that was the exact point I was going to say, is that in everything that we do, it's universal. Universal meaning that it's always there. It's always in the effort of doing this. It is not in repose. It's not resting. It's constantly in action. It represents activity of the mind. You have to take these kinds of notions and you have to incorporate them in your daily practice. Your daily practice is everything. Incorporate it into listening. Incorporate it having the sustained effort of paying attention. Okay, um, staying awake. For some of you in Eastern climes, to me, it may be difficult because it's so late at night for you. I don't know what time it is for you, Vadim, but you guys are way, way ahead of us. But it's a sustained effort, this effort that when I see him there and he's present, I go, this is a practitioner, and he's a good practitioner. And his and when I see people like him, there's no way I could not help him and use the right effort to bring him along, to cultivate him, to support him in any way I can, because I realize his potential of delivering so many people, not just in this lifetime, but in other lifetimes, as he begins to write his own work or translate things, that especially taking it to another country and translations in Russian. And I think he kind of knows I'm kind of recruiting him now, but it is something that I think that is important. I ran into people from Estonia, wonderful people that were translating sutras into the Estonian language, and it's very important because when I went there, I was so surprised how many Buddhists that were there, but for the fact that they were reading things that somebody bothered to make the effort to uh, to put into the Estonian language, they would never have been introduced to the practice. So it's very amazing. All the more so if we present right view in different languages. No, this is important that we do that. We can translate sutras and sutras, but we've got to be able to make modern day commentaries on these sutras so that they can become relevant to modern day society. When we talk about, for instance, an ox cart or something, most people have never seen an ox, much less an ox cart. And so it's different. No, when we start talking about computers and viruses in computers, these are modern day analogies that help people bridge the understanding. They may not know an ox cart, but they know, when you have a virus on your computer. All of these things are right effort. So we see what we need to do. It doesn't mean that we don't read the sutras because they're old. Quite to the contrary, what we do is we read them, and for those who have not read them, we interpret them for others. We give them the opportunity to listen to something that they have not read of themselves. There is so much that I read all the time, and in preparing for a class like this, I probably put in around 6 hours or more of prep time to speak to you today, even though I'm not really resorting to a lot of it. It's still coming out in the essence of what I'm talking about. But it is that then reading that I pull so that I can present to an audience. This audience here is a little bit deeper in their understanding, so I can go deeper with it. Let's say a general audience, then I only just talk about uh, uh, basic things to them, and every once in a while, throw them into the deep end so they can see that the idea of the Chan practice is quite elaborate and quite deep. And I'd mentioned before, I had the occasion recently to have a dialogue with this wonderful Rinpoche, Tibetan Rinpoche, and he was very, very surprised at how profound Buddha Dharma is from I'd say Chan Buddhism, Buddha Dharma. Um, and how deep it goes, and actually how, when it's demonstrated, how even more profound than, let's say, somebody who's just simply presenting it in a scholarly way, and this whole idea of this, what Samantabhadra represents, Pushan Pusa, of the doing of it, the activity of that, again, demonstration. And I constantly come back to that because it is this kind of a demonstration, which is the essence of the Chan. That's why we talk about it being beyond words and phrases, because it is this Chan of doing that's there. And if we simply talk about it in, it doesn't work as well. Just like Vilamakritti Sutra, when finally, when they were talking about the idea of emptiness, and they, Manjusri said you can't talk about it, and then Vilamakritti didn't say a word. That was a perfect demonstration of um, of this Mahayana practice at the highest level. Of course, it's not something that I just come and every week I just blow one note on a flute and then shut down. It wouldn't work that way. But in the right moment, the right time, then it speaks volumes in terms of what's there. But nevertheless, we still have to present the Dharma. It is not something that we can just say, oh, it's beyond words and phrases. So, I know, but you don't know it, so too bad. It isn't in this way. We nevertheless are in the process, moment to moment, of exerting an effort to harmonize. And this harmonizing isn't just being nice to people or being superficial about this, but that the harmony is that you still have a interest, a very firm, steady interest in delivering sentient beings, even though those sentient beings are illusory and their self nature. We say, if it's self nature, then why do we even bother to do that? Because there's still this suffering that appears in there. It's hard for us to understand that. And recently, one of you, I referred to the sutra of the I think it's called inconceivable state of that, something like that, of the child radiance. I forgot the full name, but in that sutra, and it's a recently translated one from the 84,000 group. It's just incredible because it's deep. You have to read it several times, and there's a dialogue between Shakyamuni Buddha and this, at that point, a 2-year-old child that is so incredibly eloquent, and is being the foil, trying to play, let's say, the devil's advocate of why does it matter if we do things, because the people aren't real anyway, and if they're empty, then why do we bother? And it really requires a tremendous amount of effort, real effort, to try to get there. Sometimes we read things and we go, I don't understand it. I kind of understand it, but I don't want to put the effort to try to truly understand it. But when you do put that effort in, my goodness, it is what I see now on mind work because people are beginning to put the right effort in, and all of a sudden they're finding these quotes and bringing them in. Before I had to worry about people putting nonsense on my mind work forum because I was so worried about what they're doing. But so far, I haven't had to purge or delete anything because the people are getting it right on and doing. That's not to say put whatever you want on there because it requires me to really look at it to make sure what you're putting on or you're doing it. But in these kinds of sutras that are people bringing up, they're going like, wow, look at this. It says this. I'm saying that's what I've been saying to you all along, but now you can see it for yourself. And so the Dharma pops up everywhere, all these pieces that we've missed, and it's there hidden in plain sight. So we have the sound hearer level, and then you say, oh, that sounds good, that's good, and whatever. And then you have, again, the metaphysical level where one is looking at the emptiness of things. And then eventually one can enter through into the esoteric. Don't be so quick to try to get to the esoteric. You'll only fool yourself into thinking that you went through. But eventually, it is when one begins to see the Dharma, and it opens like a lotus flower, like for a Shravakan, it's like totally tight. For the metaphysical, it's like this. In the esoteric, it's wonderfully open, completely open, and radiating. It comes with time. It comes with the right effort. It comes with patience. It comes with your generosity of sharing what you've done, the applying of wisdom there, the application of compassion in whatever we do. This is the right effort. And again, there was quite a few deeper parts and references I wanted to go to, but I think what I'm sharing with you is just the right amount of references as well as the practice side because it is in the demonstration that makes the difference. Okay, so we'll finish up there. Thank you for listening, and I'll take some questions. No questions. You guys were all chattering on mind work all day long. Someone must have questions. Okay, Shloka, Sam, the usual suspects. Okay.
Hi, Gilbert, Amito. Thank you so much. I think you sort of answered part of my question today, but it's been on my mind. So
Get a
a
little
few
closer
like,
to your microphone, please.
oh, so is it better now? Okay, so a few lectures ago, you asked us how many times do we want to keep wearing a costume, like on Halloween? And I realized I don't want to wear a costume anymore, but it feels like without one, the worldly, mundane stuff starts to feel less meaningful. And not just like doing our taxes, but like getting a PhD. Because 2 years ago, this meant everything to me because I thought that this is how I could help make the world a better place. And I still do. But then also, I met you and everything changed because I realized that the function is so much more than what I thought it was. And I do trust the causes and conditions that have led to all of this. It's just that over the last couple of weeks, as I've come back to school, I noticed that I feel less grounded in samsara and all the nitty-gritty stuff that I spend so much time on. And I guess I'm just trying to reframe or find a different perspective of doing all the mundane things that we need to do without wearing a costume and keeping the higher purpose in mind.
This is natural for you because all of a sudden you start looking at it and you start seeing the world as it is. And so there's a big question in you, like saying, you know, shall I stay or shall I go? Should I stay in this world or shall I go? You seeing the world as an illusion, you're seeing maybe the value of this world and your functions and your activities to be different. But there is a passage in the Bible that says, render unto Caesar's what is Caesar's. And what it means is that, what you do in your religion, that is one thing, but in samsara, you still have you have the goals of getting your education, your degree, and you have the things that you have to do. You still have to eat. You still have to do everything. But the only difference is that it isn't that you see those things as being inconsequential. You see them as being part of this world, part of this dream, part of mind, and you see that it's created by the mind. And in this kind of a practice, we don't try to erase the world. What we do is we erase our mental attachments or habitual impressions that lead to discriminatory or differentiating conduct in our mind that then leads to creating suffering in the mind rather than alleviating suffering. So as we see that, then we see ourselves not within this world and saying, this is a real crummy world, as much as we see ourselves, this virya that we talk about. And I'm sure you probably know the definition better than I do, but part of it is heroic. It's a warrior. It is a warrior that can sustain in battle, somebody that you would want to be next to in battle. And it is in this that we see what our purpose here is. So we don't get into the thing where oh, poor pitiful me, I don't know, I'm confused. That's all ego coming back up and messing you up. Even though your virya is there, it took a turn, and it's now being degraded by the sense of self. But when we let go of that sense of self, that sense of self-pity, self-conceit, self-centrism, then we function so much better in this world than other times. So it's difficult. We try to do the right way in terms of things, but it's something that we measure what we do and our conduct and our value and our time, and we try to find the middle way to present things. Right now, I'm in the middle of trying to work out my schedule for next year, which I had vowed I was going to cut down to one half of the visits, and I'm looking at the schedule that's blocked out for me, and it's not any different than this year. And again, as I mentioned before, by the end of the year, I'll have traveled 220,000 miles. And so that's a lot for an old guy. And next year doesn't look like it's going to be any different, but I have to look at it and measure my own health and the fact that I'm getting older, no. And so it's something that we look at and try to find this right effort to do things. But I don't have the idea of that I don't want to do it. I want to do it. It's just I have to be careful in using the right effort so I don't end up having a heart attack or a stroke, on a plane, or whatever. But I try to do my best, and my goal is one that whatever I need to do I will do it. So I study a lot. So when I go and to places, that I give them something fresh to listen to, something different than from what I said before, and to work in this way. But it's always this way. I don't see the world in a way where I'm going, oh, woe's me, I'm so old, I'm going to do this. It's just I looking at myself like a machine. Can this machine go this far? Can it do it in this way? And with this single-minded purpose, not so much that I want to do it or anything, or that I'm afraid of it. I'm looking at it and going, you know, I've got this old car and I don't know whether, I can make it all the way across country, but I never think, oh, this is such a crappy car going by, and I could be somewhere else and doing something else. It has nothing to do with that. So you watch the discrimination in your mind, Shloka. Don't let your discrimination, come in through the back door and try to affect you. You have a great heart, and you have to trust your heart. Okay, your heart will tell you what to do in any moment. Don't let your ego come in and do it for you, and your heart will lead you in exactly the right way. Okay, all right, Sam.
Amitabha, Gilbert.
Amitabha.
Thank you for your lecture today. I feel it was a very appropriate reminder of what is, at least for me, sometimes overlooked part of the practice, especially your emphasis on the sustained effort. And found it really helpful how you said it's not about getting there first or arriving first, it's about arriving. And I also feel like this was a reminder of the Bodhisattva path, the last to turn off the lights kind of idea. It's not about getting there first. It's just about getting there, but it's also about making sure everyone else is getting there too, and not necessarily getting there before them. Something I just wanted to ask you about too, maybe some feedback, I suppose, was I noticed sometimes my effort wasn't necessarily sustained in the past with practice because I would place too much emphasis on the scholarly, like sutra study, things like that. And I've been trying to reframe my practice over the last year or so where I don't place a certain weight or importance on a facet of the practice more than the other. So let's say I don't try to put all my eggs in the meditation basket or the studies basket. And I've looked at things like flower offerings or offerings at the meditation center as equally part of the practice of meditation and sutra study, like equal to those aspects of the practice. But what I wanted to ask you too was, in terms of keeping those balanced, I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time phrasing this. In terms of keeping those balanced, is it wrong sometimes that because of causes and conditions, meditation may feel more important? I'm not sure if that's the right word, or sutra study may at a certain given time feel more important, or offerings or virtuous activity. Like sometimes it just feels like at a given period that one practice has more of a pull than the others, or one facet of the practice does. Is that a part of the practice or the right effort, or should it remain balanced in that way?
Well, there's a bit of ego in that and discrimination in what you're saying. But in sometimes, Sam, it isn't necessarily the ego, but it is that one begins to realize how valuable one component of the practice is in terms of doing things. For instance, there was a group that was doing recitation for my sister who passed away, and they totally blew me away. They had read the Heart Sutra 27,000 times. 27,000 times. And that opened me up and humbled me to talk about right effort. And so it really helped me so much to understand the value of devotional practice and to see how it worked in this way that is there. And the only thing is when one has right view, that devotional practice becomes turbocharged. But in and of itself, it is still an important component of our practice. Just simply the same thing as maintaining an altar and being mindful of an altar. And for Westerners, it's hard for us to kind of like understand an altar and understand what all that's about. But to me, it's also part of my practice, and so I don't see it as something superstitious or anything of that nature, because some of the things that I've seen with my altar are pretty incredible, right from the very beginning. And so you see things, and you're it isn't that your ego's there. It is that since your ego's not there, you begin to see the value of some components of the practice that you didn't see before. So you begin to incorporate those. Again, it's hard for us as Westerners to understand that. But then again, there's some things that happened to me very early on, and I don't think you can see there is right here the Weito Pusan. He has a sword that he's holding like this, and then the sword's coming down like that, and he's holding it this way. And very early on, when I just was starting to approach an altar and look at it and going like, well, am I doing this right, or is this just a bunch of hooey or whatever? But I remember nobody really taught me about an altar. I got the altar there, and what's happening. And so I remember lighting incense, and so I have the incense in my hand, and I back away from the table, and it's lit, and I go, I wonder if it's disrespectful to blow the incense out rather than shake it. And just in that moment, and this, I am not exaggerating one bit. This truly happened, truly happened. It wasn't here, it was somewhere else, but from where it was at, the sword flew, not fell, it flew, spinning like a helicopter, and then landed at my feet. And it's only done that once in all the time that I've owned it. It's never fallen off, not even in earthquakes. But in that moment, I was taught, yeah, that's not respectful to blow it out that way. But it was this proof that there was something more to it, that because it could not have happened the way that it happened. Something doesn't just come flying out, spinning like this, and then landing right on your feet, by your feet. There was nothing that pushed it, nothing that did it, nothing that could have made it come laterally before it came down like a helicopter. Sometimes things like that happen. We don't understand them, but they give us faith, and sometimes if things happen to me like that, I tell people because it can give people faith in that. So there's a little bit of ego in terms of, and there's a little bit of you don't understand, but it's okay. Little by little, you will see all the components of it. But my advice is try them all. try them all. Don't just sit there, you know, and and try to become enlightened on a cushion. You know, I've had as many realizations from studying the Dharma as I have sitting on a cushion. And I've had great realizations on both the cushion and off the cushion. I can't say one is better than the other. I wouldn't say, oh, you don't need to sit to meditate. No, because it can be beneficial. But all of this, Sam, I recommend because you're really someone that has a great potential with all of this. So please, keep practicing. You don't know how much you've changed in the past couple of years, coming in all haughty and full of Dharma and everything. And now, it's not about you anymore. It's really a pleasure to see those kinds of improvements in people.
Thank you, Gilbert.
Yeah. Now that I said that, don't think so highly of yourself.
Don't worry. In a week or two, when I see you in Michigan, you could beat me back down.
You got it. Okay, Jake.
Hi, Gilbert. I I thought that the examples that you gave were really helpful. About like just traveling, for example, and how much effort that takes from you. Because I think maybe a misconception I had is that with right effort, as you put the self down, as the self becomes less of a barrier, compassion sort of naturally arises because the self isn't getting in the way anymore. But there is still an effort that you have to make on top of just that barrier being diminished. And so that just made a lot of sense to me. It kind of made me realize how prajna fits in with Virya. And if I can like add a question, I guess it's like to me now, my understanding of Virya has brought back in this sort of there's still a thing that you have to do. You just don't think of it as yourself and the cost and benefits associated with it, but you still have to make decisions, and there's kind of a discriminating aspect to that. And I'm wondering if you can just say a bit about how you sort of balance that component of Virya.
It, to practice, it's a progression, Jake. In the beginning, it's difficult for us. Like even for some people, they sit and they get all excited because they calm down and whatever, and then all of a sudden they get very calm and they fall asleep, and then it's not fresh anymore, and then they lose their interest because they lost their virya. They lost this effort to do it. It is why that when we practice, we have to have a sustained effort in the practice, sustained effort in terms of the understanding what we're doing. One of the most important things that I think stuns people when I go to retreats, especially to groups that have never heard me before, like quite a few places where I went to this year where people never heard me before. And I ask them, what are you doing sitting on a cushion? And they have no idea. They just think, oh, to quiet themselves or whatever, but they really don't even know the basics of it. So when we practice, we want to be able to reach everyone. We want to apply it little by little. We realize it's not about us. In the beginning, it's about us, and referring to, let's say, Sam, from before, and it was all about him in the beginning. It's not that way now. And Arvin, the same thing. Just sorry if you guys are mentioned, but I just wanted to compare simply because you're different now than you were before. And so it's a progression that we do, the more that we practice and we put the right effort in, then the more that it becomes more effortless. In the beginning, it feels like you're biking uphill, and it's a grind sometimes, and you just go, oh, I got to meditate today. As soon as you do that, you messed up everything, because then you made it into a living hell rather than something that's very, very productive or helpful. But it's because of our ignorance, we don't understand that this effort is a joyful effort, and part of what they talk about, and I didn't really mention it, is in the right effort, is there's a joy there. There's I think it's called piti. Is that right, Santha?
Yeah, piti. Yeah.
Piti, Piti. There's a joy in the practice, and the more that we begin to practice, the more we understand there's this joy that's there, and we start using that to give us encouragement to continue. We don't try to eat all the apple in one bite. We're not a crocodile, you know, so we don't have to try to eat it all at one time. We just chewing, little by little by little. We'll get that, and we'll get, literally, I hate to say it, to the core. But that's a joke, but you guys probably wouldn't get it. But in any case, we do it in this way. We just little by little, Jake. That's the thing. It's just little by little. But when we perfect these paramitas, this is the key. You keep your mind on these paramitas, memorize these paramitas, demonstrate them all the time in everything you do. And then you will naturally, what Master Dao Shen said, begin to be in the natural rhythm of things. And his statement in that way was so wonderful, because he doesn't eschew samsara, but he simply demonstrates the Dharma in samsara and sees, this is our workplace, and what we do here. And so with this kind of an understanding, then we're setting forth a fertile ground for us to practice in the right way. So little by little, it comes this way. Your questions, all of your questions this time have been very wonderful, because they're showing a sincere interest in progressing, and progressing in the right way. And it is in this way, just be patient. You are young, Shloka's the same way. You guys are young. Don't wait till you're 40 years old or 50 years old and say, I should have read more. I should have studied more. When you're 40 or 50, you will know what I know, but you'll still have more time. My biggest regret in this life is I hope I stay here for longer, simply because it took me so long to get to where I'm at now. And where I feel I'm more, how would you say, more effective in presenting the Dharma, and more credible in presenting the Dharma. You have to become an old guy, before people will start to listen to you, and I do my best to try to present the Dharma to people, so that they, especially the young ones, because you can really do quite a bit here. But it takes time. You have to pay your dues to do it. But it doesn't matter. You still can, in an early age, still have realizations. Those realizations will help you, to present the Dharma, and to study, and to guide yourself. And like I said, the one student that I have, the elderly person, I just say that he's not following the Tao, he is the Tao. And that's where we get to. It's not very easy to understand that. We can understand it even in a metaphysical way, but to truly understand it, it's actually wordless. But this is your practice. Just keep practicing in this way, little by little. Put all of the paramitas, stitch them all together in the moment. That's what people are beginning to do now. And they're looking at the sutras and going, oh, wow, look, it says this here. Look, wait till I tell Gilbert that, And this is what I've been telling you guys all along, but you haven't seen it. But now you're seeing it with your own vision. It's wonderful for me. It's wonderful, because I know that I've got people that are going to be very productive here. And some of you that are from other countries, um, you like Peter, I see you there. You guys, you have to be the vanguards in your own countries to be able to practice and bring the Dharma to life in all those countries, because what you will set into motion will be incredible. So in any case, this is how we do it. But again, the questions have been really wonderful today, and it's a representation of what's going on in terms of how you're practicing. I'm very happy that I have been blessed with good students, and I really try not to let any of you down, irregardless of what level you're at. Okay. So thank you very much. So I think that will finish up there. Thank you all. Oh, by the way, in case you live in my area, some of you, Wei Shang, sorry about that. But this Saturday, I'm having an event at my home for my students. And if you want to find out more information about it, I live in Chino Hills. So if you're local or that, you certainly are welcome. Peter, you're welcome if you want to come. I think it's a little far stretch for you. But actually, there's one person from Connecticut or Boston that's local. I'm going to try to see if I can get her to come, but I don't know. She's in a retreat right now. But she's here, Emma. And so if you're in the area, then you certainly are welcome to come. Letty, you can come and visit down here with your family too. But anyway, I don't know if there's anybody else left there, but if you do, you can just PM me on Mind Work Forum, and I'll give you more information about that. But anybody who's in the area or happen to fall into the area, you're welcome to come. So I don't see Rick, my senior students, going back to the Philippines for a while, so I wanted to see him. And all of a sudden, it just became this big snowball of inviting people, and everybody started confirming that they're coming. So I'm going to have a good crowd here. So anyway, that's that for now. Okay, thank you guys all, and we